All right, my name's Brian, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Big Book Experience Workshop. This is something that you experience. Let's take a moment, think about the still sick and suffering alcoholic. And I'm going to tell you most of the time, it's not somebody out of the rooms, it's somebody in the rooms that's suffering from untreated and they don't know any better. So let's take a minute, think about somebody you might know. And let's just keep them in mind for a second here. I'm going to say the set aside prayer only because it really helps me have an open mind. It goes like this: God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, about the 12 steps, about the big book, about other spiritual conceptions, so I can have a new experience. I can have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me see my truth. Amen. And what I want to tell you is that so far, I personally have had have had experiences. I've had experiences by being on this side of the table or whatever. I personally have had experiences. I wish um, I had wrote more of them down than what I did. You know, I always tell people, if you have an experience, write it down. Put pen to paper, write it down so you don't forget. I don't know about you all, but I got this built-in forgetter. As soon as something happens, I'm like, "Oh, that was awesome!" And then if I try to explain to somebody, I just can't because I didn't write it down. You know, I always tell people writing is the key. Writing, writing is the key. It's old school. I want to. We're on page 76. Let me go here for a second, and we're right in between step 6 and 7. We're kind of in this tough place. But what I want to get out of here first and tell you is that when I'm working with somebody and I'm sitting down with them and we're doing step 4 together, you know, um, when I work with somebody, I usually don't take any breaks until we're done with step 7. Because if you look in the book on page 63, there is no amen at the end of step 3. But there is an amen at the end of step 7. So what that means is step 3, once you do that third step prayer, we don't stop until we do the seventh step prayer. Because in that process, like I explained last week, in the fifth step promises, it says we begin to have a spiritual experience. So if I'm beginning to be under the influence of a spiritual experience in the fifth step promises on page 75, then I'm bringing that experience into page 76, the very next page. I'm under the influence now of a spiritual experience coming into step 6. And I'm also bringing that experience into step 7. I'm going to tell you most of my time, you know, uh, when I was sponsored by other people, you know, uh, we would go through these steps really quick. 6 and 7, it'd just be like boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, I'm on 8, and I'm like, yeah, right. I'm really making some progress here. I'm gonna go start making amends, and I'm gonna be on 10 here real soon, and I'm getting really psyched. But 6 and 7 was just so fast that you know, uh, my first sponsor my first sponsor was Mark Houston, and I usually never drop names. If you know me, you know I'll never drop names. Okay, but I'm putting this out there because in 1998, in February of 1998, I went to a workshop that my sponsor was putting on with his friend Joe Hawk in Texas. Now, I'd already been sponsored by Mark, but yet I went to his workshop and I was completely blown away by how in depth they were and everything. Now, I'm telling you, I'm sober about a year at that time, and I'm only able to grasp whatever I can grasp. You're only able to grasp today whatever you're capable of grasping. I wish it was recorded. I wish I had got a set of the tapes, but I didn't. So I didn't have a chance to go back and I had to listen to other workshops and stuff. But anyway, you know, the whole point of it is that, you know, years ago, back in 40s and the 50s, we can even go to early 60s where AA was getting a 75% recovery rate. Now, what were they doing then that we are not doing today? Because clearly, I don't see 75% recovery rate. You know, now obviously we also have, you know, I don't know, 400 out of the 12 step programs. Well, in the beginning, there was only one, you know, but let's really look at what they were doing. And what they were doing is they were following the book, because the book is a set of instructions that I need a sponsor to guide me through so I can find them. Because when I'm reading a book, I'm going to read it like a novel. And the big book is a textbook. I'm going to read it like a novel, and I'm not going to find nothing because I'm reading it like a novel and I'm not reading it like a textbook. So for years, you know, after I had moved to Chicago, I had got another sponsor. I actually got this guy named Paul when I moved to Chicago. And it wasn't that he had 55 years of sobriety. It was nothing like that. I didn't even know who he was. It was just he was speaking at a meeting and he said something that was so profound, reminding me of what Mark had said. And I was like, ooh, you know, this guy was talking about the ego, and that's where I need to go. And so I just went and asked him to be my sponsor. I had no clue he was sober 55 years and that he got sober in 1946. Yeah, no clue. I had no idea. And not only that, but I had no idea that Paul was actually in Mark's lineage. I had no idea until just recently, until I figured it all out and the light bulb went off. You know, I just don't pay attention to those things. I need a sponsor. I need someone to help me. I don't care who it is. You know, I just don't care who it is. And it's, you know, and so, and Paul, you know, uh, passed away with 62 years of sobriety in 2009. 62 years of sobriety. You know, never drank again. We're in this. And so, anyway, we come into step 6. We come out of 5. And I'm just doing a quick recap. We're coming out of 5. And what do I come out of 5 with? I'm under a spiritual experience, as is explained in the promises. I have a list. I have a list of all the things that I find to be objectionable. And I'm going to tell you, for me, it was everything I saw in my inventory. Everything. Column 1, column 2, column 3, everything. Column 4, being driven by the fear inventory. And then when I get into my conduct in the sex inventory, who did I harm? Where was I selfish, dishonest, right? And the reason why that's first is because that's more important. Our conduct is how we treat people is more important than who we hurt, because we're going to start to change the way we treat people. You see? So I'm bringing my list into 6. But also on page 70, at the end of step 4, it's given us some assets, you know? And I've gone over these a couple times. It says we begin to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill. You know, goodwill is actually on page 61. It's all those assets that we talked about in step 3. It's virtuous, kind, considerate, patient, generous, modest, and self-sacrificing. That's all goodwill. It's sort of like goodwill is kind of like God's will, right? It's all being doing good. So we come out of step 5 with a couple assets and a bunch of defects of character and a bunch of stuff that we just don't want anymore. So I come into 6 and I'm approaching 6 and I come through 6 and I got 2 lists, basically assets and liabilities, my strengths and my weaknesses. My weaknesses are my resentments and my fears and my conduct. Those are my weaknesses. And the reason why I say weaknesses is because those are the things I have to keep watching out for the rest of my life. Those weaknesses. And I'm going to enhance my strengths, my assets, being kind, considerate, self self-sacrificing. So we're getting ready to go into 7, and all we did in 6 was have have this willingness. You know, they gave us 2 questions in step 6 to ask. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all It don't say one or two. It says all of the things which we have admitted are objectionable. Can he now take them all, every one? Well, remember we were going through we agnostics, and I said I got to find a power that is more powerful than my ego. And when I found something in we agnostics, I'm coming up to the step, and I said, can he now take them all? And from my belief, and when I found something that's more powerful than my ego, then it could definitely take them all away. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to take them all away, or the power or God's going to take them all away, and you're going to be like Gandalf the white wizard, all of a sudden you're going to be like, the clouds are going to part, and you're going to be like, I think they talk about it in the 12 and 12, clean as snow, something like that. The reality is that God works on God's time. God doesn't work on my time. Because see, my time, God, take it away now. I'm angry. God save me from being angry right now. You see, I get out of this whole thing of telling God when he should be helping me. I change my prayers. Instead of saying, God, help me now, because I'm telling God what to do, I just say, God, help me. That's the most sincere prayer an alcoholic can say from his heart. God, help me, help me. Or your higher power, whatever, help me, right? So I'm gonna go over step 7 here, and then I'm gonna break it all down. I'm gonna break the prayer down, and I'm gonna break the whole step down. I'm gonna break it down how to apply it into your life, and then at the end we're gonna end it with the 7-step prayer. All of us, everybody unmuted, and we're gonna say it out loud together. All right. So I'm gonna break this down. It says when ready. So again, 6th step is about willingness. Willingness. If we don't have the willingness to let go, let go. Remember, I took that piece of paper. Let go. Let go. Things I don't want. The things that I don't want, I throw them away. Or I give them away. But I never ask for them back. What do we say? We have a saying, no take backs. When you give something to God, there's no take backs. How can I take it back when I gave it to him? If I gave you something I didn't want, why would I even ask for it back? I didn't want it. So to me, some of those things I didn't want, I posted in the group as I was going through the week. Remember some of the things my defiance. Remember I said, my defiance is my ego. I don't want this anymore. This is I'm looking for the word, hold on. Objectionable. It's almost like my behavior that I saw in my 4th step when I shared it with my sponsor, and my sponsor pointed out my behavior. It was almost like I got sick to my stomach. When he showed me how to do that 3rd column, I tell you what, that completely just spun me around, because I was like, and all those fears that I bracketed were absolutely real. I mean, I felt them, okay, to my core. Now we're getting ready to go to this power, God, that's more powerful than your ego. And you're going to say, God, remove my defects that stand in my way of my usefulness. So I'm going to read the prayer and break it down as I'm going. Okay, it says, when ready, we say something like this. Now, the other thing I want to tell you before I go any further, people that I sponsor, this whole thing is about your personal relationship with your higher power, whatever you chose to call it, whether it's God, power, whatever it might be. It's about you having a personal relationship with that power. Now, whatever that means to you is what it means to you. It's personal. So I say, since it's personal relationship that you're building with this power, I want you to create, because in step 3, it says wording was, of course, optional. So I encourage my sponsees to write up their own 3rd step prayer and make it personal to them, because that's what this relationship is about. And I'm going to encourage you to do it again for step 7. It says, when ready, we say something like this, which implies that we can create any prayer we want as long as it has these principles in it, just like with step 3. I'm making these things personal to me. When we were reading step 5, it says I'm trying to get a new attitude with my creator. a new attitude. So we say something like this: my creator, I am now willing that you should have all. I underlined it in my book. I underlined all of me. What does it mean? Think about it. What does it mean to you to give all of yourself to something or someone? What does that mean to you? There's 10 people in here. What does that mean to each one of you? That's a question you need to answer yourself. What does that mean to you? That your creator should have all of you, all. You see that word? I circled the word all, just like I circled the word all in step 6, right? All of me. Now it says all of me, good and bad. Now you notice after me there was a comma, and then it said good and bad. So that means my weaknesses and my strengths. So if I come out of step 5 with no assets, I'm lopsided when I come into step 7 because all I know is the bad. I don't know any good. And I'm just sharing that with you because there's been many times with sponsors that I've had where I've just gone through these steps really, really fast, and I didn't really, I didn't really get how to apply this step into my life. I felt like I was just sort of missing something in step 7. So it's the good and the bad, and that's what I get out of step 4. My strengths is that I'm patient, I'm tolerant, and I can show goodwill when I want to. When I want to be on my best behavior, I am going to act that role to the T. I want you to think about that. When you are trying to impress somebody, are you acting out the role? And do you do it well? Because I'm telling you, when I'm trying to impress somebody, I'm going to impress. Because that's the role I'm playing. That's the role I assigned myself, and I'm going to play it to the T. You see, when I want to be good, I can be good. I can act good. I can be good. You see? We're getting ready to do this transition. We're getting ready to transition we're asking God to remove all these defects of character. And what if God removed them all? What would that feel like? What if? The good and the bad, my strengths, my weaknesses, my assets, my liabilities. What's working, which is the strengths, and what's not working. It says, I pray. Now we're going to pray here. It says, I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you, which would be to God, and my fellows. So this is what they call the defect of character removal prayer. Okay, this is something you might be using every single day when a character defect comes up. It could be anything. It could be dishonest delusion in your own mind. When something comes up, I ask God at once. It says, I pray that you now remove from me this single defect, this defect of character. This is a defect. This is a prayer of removal of defects. Okay. I'm going to tell you how this works. I'm going about my day. I'm starting to be more aware of myself. I'm starting to be more aware of what I'm saying and what I'm doing and how it affects everybody, because we learned that in step 5, how it affected everybody in our lives. And it was like that ripple effect I talked about, right? Now we're going to have the ripple effect in a positive way because we're no longer hanging on to these defects of character or acting them out anymore. Now we're playing the role that God assigns us, right? That's going to be acting out in goodwill. So I humbly ask for the removal of the defects when I become aware of it. It doesn't matter when you become aware. It's the moment you become aware that you're acting out on this defect, I immediately stop myself. Immediately, I stop myself, and I got to go prayer. It says if a particular defect is troublesome and resistant, I just keep praying for the specific removal daily until it's removed. Or until I'm no longer aware of it being present in my life because I stopped acting out on that specific defect. You follow me? Or did I lose? Everybody's good. Okay. So again, I become aware of a defect. As soon as I become aware of it, I got to stop. What did we talk about before in the anger prayer? Pause, right? Right? So as soon as I become disturbed, we're going to go back and use the same thing that we used for resentment. When I'm disturbed on the inside, I need to pause. I need to stop. If I do not pause and I do not stop, I'm going to guarantee I'm going to fly. Things are going to come out of my mouth that it's going to be all kinds of trouble, right? I am going to create all kinds of problems for myself. Okay. I need to stop and pause. I need to ask God. I need to pray. God, remove this, whatever it might be in your head, this dishonest thought, this dishonest delusion. Remove that from me. It doesn't mean that God's going to do it right away. But once I become aware of it, I'm asking God to remove it. I'm using the removal prayer, that 7-step prayer. If you have to do it every day, then you do it every day. This is how you apply this into your life, right? A defect comes up. I'm going to ask God, at once, God, remove this from me. And then I'm going to start acting the opposite. So if I'm dishonest in my mind, then I'm going to start being more honest. Everybody's understanding what I'm talking about. So we started out, we come out of step 5, right? With, okay, now we got to try to be, more patient and more tolerant of others. We're still doing that. We're still doing that in step 6 and 7. We're still doing that, being more tolerant and more patient and showing goodwill. Okay. So again, one more time, a defect comes up. Now, some of you have been around for a while. All right. If someone's had been through this process before, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's step 10. As soon as I become aware of that defect, I need to pause. I need to stop. I need to say, God, take this away. God, save me from being angry. Right? Save me from being angry. How can I be helpful to him? I need to pause. And sometimes I need to pause a little bit longer. Okay. Especially if it's some kind of anger, especially if it's like the ex-wife. You guys know my anger with the ex-wife. She calls me on the phone. I see her name. I'm like, okay, take a deep breath, right? It's okay though, but I'm sober today and I don't need to keep making more mistakes for myself. You know, our problems are of our own making. So stop making your own problems from this moment forward. Start living the way that we're instructed to live. Start living the way, the roles that God is assigning you, not the roles you assign yourself. This is how we become spiritually fit. You know, we got to constantly be aware of my thinking and my actions. Again, I got to keep being aware. Now, I'm going to tell you, with time and practice, this becomes easier. At first, it's a little hard. At first, it's a little hard because I become aware. At first, when I tried to do this, I become aware of the defect after somebody mentioned it to me. Hey, you're being an asshole. Oh, shit. You know what I mean? Okay. It's way after the fact. So then I have to go back and make amends. But the thing is, I'm sober and I don't like to make amends in sobriety. So I'm going to change my behavior so that doesn't happen again. You see? This is all about change. And the change happens right now. Right now. In steps between 6 and 7. This change happens right now. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, I posted some stuff in the WhatsApp chat. And what I posted in there was about uh, uh being conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. You know, and that really blew me away because when we did inventory, we went into the unconscious and we did inventory of all the things that are in the unconscious, and that stuff that was in the unconscious is now conscious. There shouldn't be too much more that's unconscious anymore, if anything, in your life anymore, because we just woke up the whole unconscious. We went into the dark. That's why it says the dark cranny of the past. We went into the dark. We went down deep, and I dug as deep as I could go to help you all have an experience. I got to go deep from the conscious, subconscious into the unconscious and pull it out, right? That's the experience. To me, the whole experience was, man, I would say it was more with 5 and things being explained to me, and I'm going, oh, that's how I apply this. Man, I missed this thing for a number of years on how to apply step 7 into my life. I did. I didn't know how to do this. I mean, it was explained to me when I was a year sober by Mark, but right off of my head, you see, because I can only grasp whatever you can grasp today. You know, tomorrow you might be able to grasp it more. But this is how this works. The moment I become aware of a defect, I need to ask God at once to remove it. At once. At once. If that means I need to go in the bathroom, I'm at work, I can say it in my head. God, save me from being angry with the customer. You see, I can say it in my head. And there's been times where I had to go in the bathroom, get on my knees. God, save me from being angry with my boss. Save me. And I might have said that prayer 3 or 4 times. I pretended I was in the bathroom for a while, and I came back out and I was smiling. And I was happy and everything was good. I let it all go. You see? But if that's what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. This is all about you being free from the bondage of self and leaving that shit in the past. We're moving forward now. You see? You're going to start to experience the freedom from the bondage of self. Freedom from the bondage of self. To be free. And here, deep inside. Peace, freedom. Again, defect character comes up. I'm going to ask God at once to remove it. And I'm going to keep using that 7-step, that character defect, removal prayer every morning until it's removed, or until I'm no longer aware of it being present in my life, because I'm not behaving that way anymore. I'm not being inconsiderate. I'm being considerate, right? I'm not being impatient. I'm being more patient. I'm not being intolerant. I'm being more tolerant of others. You see? From this moment forward. So we're not going to look back in the past. We haven't really, we're going to look back in the past in step 9, but that's all we have left to do with the past. From this moment forward is to make amends and clear that up. And then we can be present and live in the moment and be under the presence. Again, under the influence of a spiritual experience. That is a beautiful place to be. A beautiful place to be. And I can be there almost as much as I want to be, because I'm living a spiritual way of life and I'm not acting out on my defects anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that God's going to take them all away. Because again, I'm referring back to what I'm in the beginning, because I thought, oh, God's going to take it all away. And, that doesn't, some of these defects, is going to be left in my life because I'm human and I'm not perfect. And I don't think there's any way of ever getting completely free of self-will. 100%. I just think that's why we got to keep looking over for it all the time. There's no way I can be completely free from the ego or even my subconscious. My subconscious, the only thing my subconscious knows is me. It doesn't know anything else other than me. That's an interesting concept when you start thinking about that. That's my subconscious. It doesn't know anything else except me. So I ask God at once to remove the defect of character, and I start acting out, doing the opposite. Again, I got to act out the opposite. I got to be honest, patient. Now, I want to take a step back here for a second and remember when I was talking on page 61 about goodwill, and when I want to be kind, considerate, when I want to be these good things, because these qualities are already in me, right? They were just blocked off by resentments and fears. Now I can start acting the way these qualities can come to the surface, and I can start becoming the person that God wants me to become. That I wasn't able to do it before because I was blocked off from God with the resentments and fears. Now I can start to grow into that person, whatever that's going to be. I can start to grow into that person that I'm meant to become. In the 7th step, the alcoholic uses words to continue the process of recreating his life with the guidance, protection, and help of God, of his understanding. We're recreating our life. This is the step that we start to recreate our life. In step 7, in step 6, recreate. Okay? How am I recreating my life? Well, I'm recreating my life because I'm not acting out on my defects, and I'm acting out on the assets, on my strengths, not my weaknesses. I'm recreating my life. I'm no longer living in my defects, and I'm now living in the solution. Recreate my life. We will ask for the removal of all the things which now admits, which he now admits are the liabilities, the weaknesses, and which stand in the way of his being happy, joyous, and free. That's the things. The things that your liabilities is what's keeping you from being happy, joyous, and free. That's the bondage of self. For me, it was part of this letting go of that bondage of self. I put my hand out so you can see, but that's just how I let it go. You know, I got something in my hand, just got to let it go. That bondage of self, I just got to let all that go. That includes the ego. I want to be free. I want to be free. How free do you want to be? This is an act of humility, an act of love, through which the drunk begins to experience his oneness with his real self. The real self. The real self I don't even know. It's all those good qualities in me that are coming to the surface. That's the real self. I begin to experience a sense of peace, the transformation from living in a delusion of the false self. The false, remember that false sense of self, the delusional state, that ego state we talked about in the third column, right? The transformation from living in the delusion of the false selves, which then includes roles, false selves, from playing false roles, self-transformation also begins to manifest. The alcoholic begins to know who he really is. After seeing all the roles he played that were who he was not. When I saw those roles that I put in that third column and going down, I wasn't any of those things, right? But that really was who I was. The death of self-will through the process of steps 4 through 7 brings about a revolutionary change in heart and mind. Through the process of working those steps, the alcoholic has been freed of his chains of self-will, of that bondage, of those things that have been binding him. If you will, he was bound up by the bondage of self that he had created. You see, I was bound by the bondage of self that I created my own self. I bound myself up in that because of the false sense of self. So I planted in the mind the way of fault programming and wrong conditionings. Think about that dishonest delusion. I believed it all. I believed my own lie. He becomes aware of the fact that he is the false self, the fact that it is the false self that binds us. And it is by rejecting those false roles that one's true identity that allows consciousness of the real self to continue into being. This is the transformation, which is really only a shift from unconscious to conscious. From making that shift, you just woke up everything that's inside of you. It went from being unconscious to conscious. From believing that false selves are real to seeing that the false roles were indeed false. The drunk begins to see that he was unconscious, not only when he passed out from drinking, but then he was unconscious even when he was walking about in a supposed state of being awake. In a supposed state of being awake, I was asleep. I did those things, the resentments and all those fears, that comes from a lower vibration. It's like the lowest part of self, right? The drunk begins to remember that he has always known, and he begins to leave behind what he is not. His change of heart and mind, combined with the change of actions and words, which we do in step 7, have all begun to lead to recreation of his life. This affords him freedom from the obsessive thought life around drinking and from the detriment of having his life run on self-will. The alcoholic will experience a shift. Like right now, that's going to happen. A shift, a transformation, a recreation, whereby he begins to experience his true self. I'm going to stop doing the things that I'm afraid to do. I'm going to stop doing the things I'm afraid to do. And I'm going to start doing things that I was afraid to do before. You see? It's like the opposite. Once this step creates a feeling of oneness with self and with all, the drunk can start living a life in which he chooses to be conscious, to be awake, to be aware of my thoughts and my actions. Remember, we went over that in step 5, how it affects everybody else. Now I'm going to be more aware of it, of what I'm saying and doing, again, because of that ripple effect, right? The morning after doing this, part of the work, he is, with each beat of his heart, recreating his life. The moment I start to see a defect of character, the moment it's present in my life and I ask God to remove it and I start acting out and doing the opposite, that's the exact moment that I'm recreating my life. And you can do it too, one step at a time. It's kind of simple, right? Simple, but not easy. Simple, but not easy. But I got a plan, you see, that I can put into action. And that is something that has been so important to me when I've gone with sponsors, that they can point out, how can I apply the step into my life? How can I apply these steps into my life? What do I have to do? Right? The drunk begins to remember that he has always known. He begins to leave behind what he is not. His change of heart and mind, combined with the change of action and words, have all begun to lead to a recreation of his life. This affords him freedom from the obsessive thought life around drinking and from the deterrent of having a life around self-will. The alcoholic will experience a shift. The drunk can start living a life which he chooses to be conscious, to be awake, to be aware. The morning after doing this part of the work, he is, with each beat of his heart, recreating his life. He faces a choice. Does he want to experience a life that runs along the lines of the will of the universe? Or does he want to begin to experience the rebirth of self-will? All right? It's like that, what is that page? I can't remember what page it was. It's in the 20s. But we have two alternatives. One to go on to the bitter end, and the other to accept spiritual help. You know, two choices. It's given us two choices again, right? I'm going to read it to you one more time. He faces a choice. Does he want to experience a life that runs along the lines of the will of the universe? Or we say the will of God. Or does he want to begin to experience the rebirth of self-will and all the negative consequences that follow that? Because I know I don't want to do that at all. If the drunk goes on, if the drunk does not walk in awareness, then his self-will surely live again. I'm going to say that to you one more time. If the drunk does not walk in awareness, then his self-will surely live again, be reborn, the self-will. I don't want that to happen. Having experienced the oneness with your higher power and the real self, the alcoholic can move on to steps 8 and 9, through which he will begin to experience oneness with his human beings, with his fellow. We're talking about oneness. When I go and make amends to somebody, I'm going to feel oneness with them. Because guess what? Most of the time when I got to go make amends, it's from me doing something on purpose to them. Everything I did on my inventory, I did on purpose. So guess what? I owe them amends. I owe them an amends because everything I did on purpose. And some of the shit I did in my inventory, I did way more than on purpose. I did to get a reaction out of somebody else. which is manipulation. Okay? I don't want to live that way of life anymore. Anymore. So what do I got to do? I got to start being aware. I got to start being aware, right? What's going on? My head. And then I start to change my actions. The more I change my actions, the more I apply step 7 into my life, the more I change my actions, guess what's going to happen? My thinking is going to start to change. If you remember in step 3, I talked about all action is born in thought. Okay. Now we have to go backwards. We're going backwards because we got to a certain place where life was running on self-will and we're in collision with everything and everybody. Now we're going to go backwards now. Now we're going to act our way into right thinking. Act our way into right thinking. As we practice steps 6 and 7, when we're in the throes of our addiction, we tried harder and harder to control events, other people, and ourselves. Think about that. Control everything, detail of the play. This proved unsustainable and unmanageable. Eventually, we crashed and burned. Now, as our recovery matures, we no longer try to manage and control everybody else. That in itself is like a spiritual experience, right? I'm just not fighting no more. And I'm not trying to control anybody else. We understand that we simply cannot know what will happen next, no matter what we do. We have seen many times events evolve in ways we could never have imagined. We have experienced remarkable, unexpected, and unpredictable turns of events that were perfect for everyone. We have been part of a spiritual experience that we have not possibly have crafted, planned, caused, or controlled on our own power. On our own power, I cannot produce a spiritual experience. Even the doctors, I don't know, there was at least 2 doctors that said, 2 or 3 doctors that we were reading said they can't do that. Carl Jung said he couldn't do that. Dr. Silkworth said he couldn't do that. Something more than human power is needed to produce the spiritual experience. Eventually, we lose the desire to improve our own personal will. Eventually, we lose any desire to impose our own will on others because we know that our role in life is to rely on spiritual direction instead of direction of self-ego. And then we carry those directions out in all of our affairs. Where do we think I get these directions from? Is it from my sponsor? Is it from sponsee? Is it from people in the meetings? These directions come from God, the one that has all power. It says we rely on spiritual direction instead of direction of self-ego. And then we carry out the directions out of all of our affairs. What happens to us is important, but as we work these steps, we come to see that what's far more important is the integrity of our response to what happens to us. My integrity, right? I'm going to start responding different from the outside world. Think about this. Stuff's happening on the outside all the time, right? If I got peace and serenity inside, I'm not going to let anything on the outside come in and mess this up. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I've allowed it to happen a million times. I've allowed it to happen to mess this up. And sometimes it could be something that's peaceful and serene. And next thing you know, I bump my toe. And that peaceful out the window. You see how quick it can leave, right? It's the integrity in my responses to what happens to me. What happens to us is our history. The integrity of our response is our future. I read it to what happens to us is our history. The integrity of our response is our future. And through the ripple effect, our response will have an effect on the future of our world. Remember, we talked about that ripple effect with the resentments and anger and how it just, well, now I can have you all can have a different ripple effect now. by just becoming the person that God wants you to be and just putting that out there. Being kind, considerate, all those things that are goodwill, all those things that were on page 61. Patience, tolerance, right? I'm going to read to you because I love these things. It's given me so much stuff to work on. It really is. So on page 61, virtuous, kind, considerate. Go and be this. This has always been a part of you. Kind, considerate, patient, generous. I remember I learned to be generous when I was little, and my mom said, share your toy with your brother. And I said, I don't want to. And she goes, it doesn't matter. You learn to share, right? Being generous, modest, self-sacrificing. Okay. Go be these things. They've always been a part of you. Go and be that. Practice that. See what that's like to be kind, considerate, show love. You can act. If you can act this out, then you can go act it out. Go be kind, be considerate, put that out into the world. I guarantee you put out positiveness out there, it's going to come back to you tenfold. It's going to come back. Whatever you put out in the universe, it's going to come back. If I'm putting out love, what do you think's going to come back? I'm going to feel loved if I put out love. You see what I'm saying? I want to read something here because we're talking about acting now. We're talking about, I want to act on my best behavior from this moment forward. I want you to act on your best behavior. And guess what? It's an experiment. And you can tell me next week what happens. You got 1 week. And to tell me what happens to do it by you acting out on your best behavior right now, from the way that this is open, from this is over, all the way until the next Zoom meeting in 1 week. I want you to come back and tell me what that was like, acting out on your best behavior. And this time, this moment, right now, forward, acting out on your best behavior. And tell me what's going to happen next week. All right. Now, I'm going to read something here. It's on page. I'm going to read it. You don't have to go here. It's on page 97. You don't have to go there. I'm reading one line because it's going to go. It's talking about what I'm talking about. And it says here on 97, a kindly act. All right. A-C-T, act. A kindly act. That means like I'm being kind to the neighbors and I'm being a kindly act. Now I know how to act kind. We all do. It's already in here, right? So when I want to be kind, I will. So it says a kindly act once in a while isn't enough. A kindly act once in a while is not enough. It says. So I put after enough, I put a bunch of it's not enough. A kindly act once in a while is not good enough. I need to go beyond that. You have to act. There's that word. You have to act. And I put act in parentheses, a good Samaritan every day. If need be. Well, guess what? It's need be. So we're going to act like a good Samaritan every day from this moment till next week. You got 7 days and come back and tell me what that was like. What that acting on your best behavior 1 week. Can you act on your best behavior for 1 week? Can you do that? Seriously. I'm asking everybody, just nod your head. Can you commit to doing that for 1 week? Because you know what? If you're committing, I'm committing. I'm doing the same thing that you're doing. You've not done anything that I haven't done. Okay? So if I'm going to commit to being on my best behavior for 1 whole week, you all do it too. All right? I got something else for you. Where are we at? Oh, almost an hour. Okay. Couple more things here. Cover up. This is a divine type of surgery. I just absolutely love that. This is like surgery inside here because we're taking out the bad, and I'm just really going to let it go. It's like surgery. Divine. It's divine type of surgery that suggested that steps 6 and 7, humble prayer becomes the spiritual scalpel with which God cuts out the damaged portions of our sick personality. That's why it's divine type of surgery, because God's going to go in there and do the surgery, right? Cut out the damaged portions of my sick personality. Complete surrender to God's will assures us a painless, successful operation. I'm going to say that to you one more time. Complete surrender to God's will assures us a painless, successful operation. Man, I like painless. I don't like pain. Surrender of our defects to a higher power is not the spiritless act of a defeatist, but the intellect act of an alcoholic who would replace his fear and weakness with spiritual courage, understanding, strength, and contented sobriety. So we humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. This is an experience, a humbling experience. I want to go back here for a second. And I want to, you all remember those delusional states we had talked about in step 4. Everybody remember those? False sense of self. And remember I said when you're in that ego state, when you're in that ego state, you don't know the difference between the truth or the false. Because I believed the false for so long. I believed my own delusional, self-deceptional lies, right? That I believed them, that I would fight to the death for you to believe that it was right when I found out in my inventory that it was all wrong. Holy crap, that was an experience in itself. I was like, I've been living this way all my life and I didn't even know. Well, now I'm definitely making sure that I'm not going nowhere near that life that I didn't even know I was even living. You follow me? Over and over, we must ask ourselves, is it true or is it false? Over and over, I got to keep asking myself, is it true? Is it false? For honesty is an eternal search for truth. It is by far the most difficult of the 4 absolutes. So I'm going to talk about the 4 absolutes because that's how you're going to take this step 7 a little bit further, okay? But especially for us in this fellowship, the problem drinker develops genuine artistry or deceit. Too many, and we plead guilty, simply turn over a new leaf and relax. That is wrong. The real virtue and honesty lies in the persistent, dedicated strive for it. There is no relaxed twilight zone. It's either full speed ahead constantly, or it's not honesty we seek. And the unrelenting pursuit of truth will set you free, even if you don't quite catch up to it. We need not choose or pursue falsity. All we need is to relax our pursuit of truth, and falsity will find us. The search for truth is the noblest expression of the soul. Let a human throw the engines of his soul into the doing or making of something good, and the instinct of workmanship alone will take care of its honesty. So I'm going to tell you about the 4 absolutes: honesty, unselfishness, purity, and love. Now, I'm going to tell you, we covered a lot about unselfishness in step 3. Not only did we find out, but unselfishness is the root of all my problems. It's also the root of the ego. And we already learned a lot about honesty when we went into how it works, right? Got to be honest with myself so I can be honest with others. And that's really about it. I just got to ask myself, is it true or is it false? Am I in that false sense of self or is it true? Unselfishness. Again, that one's real easy. Are you being selfish or are you being unselfish? Again, you have to ask yourself a question. How will this affect the other fellow? How will this affect others? That's how we determine whether it's selfish or unselfish. How will it affect others? If it doesn't affect others, then it might be okay, right? Might be unselfish if it doesn't affect others. But I know when I'm selfish, I affect everybody around me. Everybody. And you got love. I like to think that love is the opposite of hate. And I know all about hate in my inventory. I hated lots of people in column 1. Now I have a love. You know, before we started I was talking to Sean about love, a love of a father to a child or a mother to a child. It's a different type of love that you have for a child, but that's pure. That's pure unconditional love, you know, and that's an amazing thing to feel. A good question to ask ourselves on love might be, is it ugly or is it beautiful? Is it ugly or is it beautiful? We are experts on ugliness, aren't we? We are experts on ugliness, because my whole inventory was all about ugliness. We have really been there. We are not experts on beauty, but we have tasted a little, and we are hungry for more. Love is beauty, coming from the depths of fear, physical agony, mental torture, and spiritual starvation. We feel completely unloved, impregnated with self-pity, poisoned by resentment, and devoured by prideful ego, which with alcohol has brought complete blindness. We receive understanding and love from strangers, and we make progress as we in turn give in to new strangers. It's as simple as that. Fortunately for us, love is inspiring from the very beginning, even in kindergarten, which is where many of us still are. Which many of us still are. You know, I like to think when I first came to AA, I was very immature. And they often say that, you know, the moment you start drinking, you stop maturing. You know, so I think when I came in here, I was probably somewhat of a teenager, you know, and doing teenager things. When we live in our own sobriety, we again become beggars in spiritual rags. Blind once again with the dust of pride and self, soon we shall be starving with the hunger of devouring ourselves, perhaps even lose our sobriety. Love is giving of ourselves, and unless we do, our progress will be lost. Love is giving of ourselves and our time, and unless we do, our progress will be lost. Each one owes the gift of his second life of sobriety to every other human being he meets in the ceaseless presence of God. Each one owes the gift of his second life of sobriety. I've been given a second chance in sobriety, a second chance to live. And every other human being he meets in his ceaseless presence of God. And especially to other alcoholics who still suffer. Not to give of himself brings the desolation of a new poverty to the sober alcoholic. I gotta give. When we offer love, we offer our life. Are we prepared to give it? Are you prepared to give it? When others offer us love, we are offered life. We have the grace to receive it. When love is offered, God is there. The will to love is God's will. Have we taken the third step? Ask yourself, is it ugly or is it beautiful? If it's truly beautiful, then it is the way of love. It is the way of AA, and it is the will of God as we understand him. So we covered honesty, unselfishness, love. The last one is purity. Purity is simple to understand. Purity is a flawless quality. A flawless quality of pure mind and simple intention. By two wings, a man is lifted up from things earthly, namely by simplicity and purity. Simplicity doth tend towards God. Purity doth apprehend the taste of him. Wasn't quite sure how that. Purity is a quality of both the mind and the heart, or perhaps we shall say the soul of man or woman. As far as the mind is concerned, it is simple case of answering the question, Is it right or is it wrong? That should be easy for us. There is no twilight zone between right and wrong. Even in our drinking days, we knew the difference was the cause or part of the cause of our drinking. We did not want to face the reality of doing wrong. It is in the realm of the mental aspect of purity that our main problem lies. We can all answer the question quoted above to the best of our ability and get the correct answer. We must approach these objectives of the absolute humbly. We pray for these things and sometimes forget that these virtues must be earned. The gates of wisdom and truth are closed to those wise in our conceit, but ever open to the humble in the teachable. To discover what is true and to practice what is good are the two highest aims in life. To discover what is true, which we did on our inventories, and to practice what is good. See, we got to practice what is good. We got to go and start acting our best behavior from this moment forward, practicing what is good. Everybody's got good in them. It's the highest, the two highest aims in life. If we would be humble, we should not stoop, but rather we should stand on our fullest height, close to our higher power that shows us what the smallest of our greatness is. The smallness of our greatness is. Remember our four questions for the four absolutes. Is it true? Is it false? Is it right or wrong? How will it affect the other fellow? And is it ugly and beautiful? Answering these queries each day with absolute integrity and following the dictates of those answers one day at a time will surely lead us well on our journey toward absorbing and applying the absolutes. Now, the reason why I mention the absolutes is because this is an historical document. It says right on the bottom, this is an historical document. It says, with the historical look at the effects of the Oxford Group movement and the four absolutes upon Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I'm going to read this. In 1948, this is 2 years before Dr. Bob died, all right? Four absolutes come out of Akron. They don't come out of New York. They come out of Akron. And what I'm going to say is this is the four absolute pamphlet. It looks just like that. And if you look on the back, it will say something that you're not going to see anywhere else. It will say something right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says the birthplace of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's got a circle and a triangle, and it says AA, Intergroup, Akron Intergroup, 1935. Birthplace of Alcoholics Anonymous. You can buy this pamphlet at Akron Intergroup online. It's like 35 cents or something, you know? But you can't get it at GSO in New York. Okay. Not only does this sell it in Akron, but I got another one here, Four Absolutes. They sell this one in Cleveland. Cleveland Intergroup. They also sell them in Chicago Intergroup, but they will not show them at GSO because it's not conference approved. Okay. Again, 1948. Bob recalled the absolutes as the only yardstick AA had in its early years. His only yardstick. So how would he apply those into his life? It would be step 6 or step 7, right? We would measure decisions carefully by those yardsticks. Measure decisions carefully. And if they measured up, then we knew we could not be far wrong. If they measured up. Here's the thing with using the four absolutes, with self-will or God's will, okay? I can take the four absolutes, like this here, little card, all right? Take the four absolutes. I just kind of lost my train of thought. Dang, I hate when that happens. Anyway, can somebody help me what I was just talking about a second ago? Anybody? Sean? Anybody? You can't unmute yourself, can you?
Yeah, I think, you know, he was just talking about
yeah, I got it. So I got it. I'm already back, just like that. So I'm talking about the four absolutes, right? Is what I was talking about. And how to apply those. You know, apply those in your life. Now it has to pass the test of all four. It has to pass the test. If it passes the test of all four, then it's God's will, and then you can act on it. But if it doesn't, then you want to re-examine that. So, how does it pass the test? Is it honest? Is it true or false? Is it unselfish? How will it affect the other fellow? Again, if it doesn't affect them at all, then it's probably being unselfish. If it's being selfish, then it's going to affect, when I'm selfish, I'm going to affect everybody in my life. So again, honesty, is it true or false? Unselfishness, how will it affect the other person? And love, is it ugly or beautiful? And purity, is it right or wrong? If you can pass the test with your thoughts of all four of these, then it's God's will, and you can surely act out and not worry about it. That's how it talks about, this is the only measuring stick that we had. You see, it's got to pass all four. Now, if it doesn't, you might probably best not to act out on that and talk to your sponsor about that. Because there might be something in there that we need to look at as far as an inventory wise, right? All right. One more thing. I got a couple of questions. I like to put out these questions for a deeper experience. You can write them down, but if you want, I can give them to you posted in there. But I want you to take these questions into meditation. After prayerful consideration, I want you to write out your answers. Here's the first one. Am I willing to pray the defect removal prayer without reservation? Am I willing to pray the defect removal prayer without reservation, without holding back, right? Am I willing to pray that without reservation? 2, if I have a particular stubborn defect, because we're all going to have a particular stubborn defect, whatever that might be, am I willing to pray the defect removal prayer every day until it's removed? And if I have a particular stubborn character defect, am I willing to pray for its specific removal every day until it's removed or until I no longer see it present? You guys ready for number 3 yet? Almost. Meanwhile, am I willing to stop or at least modify the behavior, the outright manifestation of this character defect? Again, are you willing to stop it completely or at least modify it? At least modify it. Again, when you become aware of it, am I modifying it? Because I kind of am. Once I become aware, I immediately stop. So then it's modifying it, right? The outward manifestation of this character defect. We're talking about specific character defects. We're not talking about all. We're talking about specific. You see, these questions are very specific that I take into meditation when I become aware of a defect. I take these questions into meditation so I can be free from it, and it doesn't create any more problems in my life. The last one. Do I believe my higher power, God, can remove this obstacle and restore my sanity? I'll read it to you one more time. Do I believe my higher power can remove this obstacle and restore my sanity? Got one more question. Do you believe your higher power will? Do you believe that your higher power will? Because even if you believe that your higher power can remove the obstacles and restore your sanity, will he? That's a big one to take. Will he? Will he? How strong is your belief? All right. Sometimes if I'm unsure and I got doubt, I need to go in meditation. And I'll come out of meditation with no doubt at all. I will absolutely be sure that he can. If anybody's got any questions on the 4 absolutes, any of that, let me know. Now, I did mention my sponsor at one time, and I just want to talk a little bit about this. I got sober in Texas. My sponsor was Mark Houston. If anybody knows about Mark Houston, you can Google him on YouTube. You know, when I first got sober, I wanted to be like him. Like he was like I wanted to be like this guy. And I was like dropping names all the time. And I wanted to be somebody in an anonymous program. How does that even sound? I wanted to be somebody. And it sounds so stupid, doesn't it? You know, I wanted to be somebody. And I'm going to tell you, with all of that, in 2008, I stopped doing recordings because of that. Because I didn't want to be, it was an ego thing. And I didn't want to, if you weren't there, that was your loss. That's how we looked at it. If you weren't there, it was your loss. I haven't done any recordings until just 2 years ago, since 2008, because of the ego. I needed to smash my ego because I got YouTube recordings. Just go listen to them. Shut up and go listen to them, right? You see? But it's that ego. It's that ego. I was sending out YouTube videos to everybody I meet. Here you go. Look how great I am, right? I don't even care about that anymore. I just don't even care about that anymore. All I care about is peace and serenity. That's all I want. I don't want no drama. I don't want none of that. Peace, serenity. I want to put out love so love comes back because I want to be loved too. So I know if I put it out, it's going to come back 100-fold. And that doesn't even mean I have to be in a relationship to feel that. It's whatever I put out in the universe, it's going to come back. So instead of me putting out resentment and anger and fear and bad conduct, I'm doing the opposite now. I'm doing the opposite. I'm going to put out love. I'm going to put out forgiveness. I'm going to put out patience, tolerance, and I am going to act on my best behavior from right now, all the way till next week. And I'm going to tell you when we get on the Zoom meeting, I'm going to tell you how that went. And I hope you all have experiences. If you have experiences in this week, write it down and share it with us because your experience might change somebody else's life that's in this meeting. This isn't all about me. This is all about you. I'm just a guide. As I think all the time, I'm just a guide. All I'm doing is I'm pointing in the right direction and go over here, over here, over here. And you're having the experience. Not me. You're having the experience. And that's your experience. I have my own. You can't have mine. Okay, I have my own. You have to go and have your own experience. Experience it. And then go to meetings and share what you're doing. It's so important that you share, that you're working these steps in meetings that you go to. Because if you don't, I want you to just listen to meetings that you go to and listen to what people say. This is what I'm currently doing. Do you ever hear anything like that? Because I don't. I hear people talking about what they've done in the past, but they don't tell when they've done it. And it could be years ago. So when I share the work that I've done, I always share where I'm currently at because it's important what I'm doing today, not what I did yesterday. What am I doing today? Well, today I'm going to be aware. I'm going to be aware of what's coming out my mouth, and I'm going to be aware of what I'm doing with my hands and my body. What are my actions? I've been so aware of how they affected everybody in my life that I don't want to be like that anymore. So I'm going to be aware of this, what's coming out my mouth, and I'm going to be aware of what I'm thinking and how I'm thinking, and I'm going to act on my best behavior. So I don't hurt nobody. I'm going to act on my best behavior from this moment forward. I hope I did real justice on this. Let's end this with the 7-step prayer. And I'm going to ask everyone to unmute. I want everyone, this is what I want I want everyone, if I can figure out how to unmute, give me a second here. I don't know how to unmute everybody.
If you make me co-host, I can do it.
Who was that? Was that Daniel?
Yes, if you make me co-host, I can do it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I've just been able to do it, Brian.
You got it. Somebody can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Daniel got it. You can do it. I just can't remember. I lose my.
it's all good. No worries. Ask all to unmute. Okay. I think everybody.
Everybody unmute. Oops. Everybody that's unmuted that wants to be. How's that? So.
Yeah. There you go.
Go to page 76. And you guys remember how we did this with the 3rd step prayer? Everybody remember how we did that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my knees are going to get hurt because I'm going to get down on my knees. So if you all like to do this, because we got to humble ourselves. So I'm going to get down and I'm gonna, it's gonna be a little harder for me. See, I gotta do one at a time. But I'm sitting down here because I'm gonna humble myself in front of you all. Okay. Now, normally when I sponsor people, I normally have them do the prayer and I listen. But today, we're all gonna do it together. Okay. Not only that, but I want you to feel when you say this prayer. I want you to mean it sincerely, and I want you to feel this defective character removal prayer. Okay. Before we do the prayer, I'm going to end the workshop. Once we finish with the prayer, I'll stop the recording. Anybody wants to comment after that, you're free. But before we say the prayer, again, I always like to remember the still sick and suffering alcoholic in the rooms dying from untreated alcoholism. Let's just take a moment to remember that, and then we're going to start with the prayer. Okay, if everybody like to join me, my Creator,
My Creator,
I am
I am
now
now
I am now willing that
you
you
should
should
have
have
all
all
of
of
good and
me,
bad.
good and
good
bad.
and
I
bad.
pray
I pray
that
that
you
I pray that
You
you
now
now remove
every
remove
single
me
me
defective
every
every
single
character
defect
which
single
stands in the
defect
way
of
of my
character
character
usefulness
which
to
which
stands in the
stands
way
in
of
the
my
way of
usefulness to you
usefulness to
and
you and
my
my
fellows.
fellows.
grant me
Grant me
strength
Grant
as
me
strength
I go out
as
strength
I
as I
go out
go
to
out
from
do
here.
from
your
here
bidding.
Do
to do
your
your
bidding.
bidding.
Amen.
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 Amen. It says we have then completed step 7. All right. Everybody see. So again, from this moment forward, I want everyone in here to act as if God has taken them all your defects away. I want you to act as if God just took them all away right now, and I want you to act on your best behavior from this moment going forward. I know it's a tall task, but I think we can all be successful with this. All righty.